Don't do that. Wow. Don't we start our shows with a joke, Brian?
Fine. Knock, knock.
Oh, God. I asked for it. Who's there?
Boo!
Oh, boo who?
Look, Mark, I know the jokes are terrible, but there's no reason to cry over them.
I'm gonna start crying. I really am.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome
to the
WizardCast.
Okay, Brian, I have to ask,
Yeah?
why did you try to scare me at the start of the podcast, especially with such a childish method that doesn't really work?
It's not childish. Besides, Mark, it's the Halloween special.
Halloween. It's mid-November.
Look,
Brian.
Look, it's not my fault. If we had stayed on schedule, we would have actually posted on Halloween. But we got delayed. And then you had, quote, real life, unquote, stuff come up. And we got delayed again. It's not my fault.
Uh-huh. Okay, so it's my fault. Got it. Okay, but it's no longer Halloween. So it'll confuse our listeners, Brian. How do you think that's going to work? What was that for?
Happy Thanksgiving, Mark.
What?
This is the time in our show where we'd like to thank our sponsors for sponsoring us.
But they're not real sponsors. I don't... Oh, come on.
This episode of the WizardCast is sponsored by Boo Wiz, the cheese whiz favored by ghosts everywhere. Comes in 3 tasty flavors, so try Boo Wiz today. It's to die for. Found wherever fine spirits are served.
Boo Wiz? Boo.
It's like
Chi
Whiz.
But booze.
But with, yeah.
But, okay.
I don't know about you, but whenever I have Chi Whiz, I usually boo anyways, because
please,
nasty.
Dear God, let's get some real sponsors soon so we don't have to keep doing these.
Yeah, it'll really help the bank account, too. But you know what, Mark? Do you know what time it is?
What?
It's time for...
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say something really stupid.
We got 2 questions today, Mark.
2?
Yes.
2? Really?
2.
We actually we had 2 different people who asked us something.
Yes, now,
really?
Granted, only one of them have given me permission to answer the question on the air.
Oh, but
that's okay, because
you know what? Yeah,
when you contact WizardCast, we just assumed you want your question answered.
You grab the bull, you get the horns, or something like that. Is that how that goes?
We're both something, but I don't think that we're the horns then. Anyways, first question comes from Susan. I won't say Susan's last name. They're somewhat anonymity. Right?
Hi, Susan.
Yes. Hi, Susan. So, Susan has a flow with a number of screens that's gathering data, about 300 fields worth, and then they're creating a contact. Is there a way to do this without mapping all the fields to the contact fields individually?
Oh, okay. Wow.
That's a lot of fields.
That's a lot of fields.
Unless you're really specifically guiding a user to help them fill out fields by maybe asking questions instead of the field name, I probably wouldn't be doing this in Flow.
Well, okay, and to be fair, I'm going to come back to that very point here in a moment. To be fair, I can think of one case where it actually does make sense to have this in a flow, and that is it's actually a specific use case that I've been building, where you have a lot of questions that all need to be answered, and they're all the same. They're yes, no, NA. And if you build all of those as radio button questions and put them all in your flow, think about it. I'm a big proponent of the yes, no pick list, right?
Sure.
The yes, no pick list makes a lot of sense in a lot of cases, because In a lot of cases, a checkbox just means an empty checkbox just means that
It's
nobody
empty.
checked it.
Right.
Yeah,
And you
it doesn't
can't make a
actually mean
checkbox
no.
required. Well, you
and you
could,
can't make it
but...
exactly. So the yes no pick list becomes very important. But let's say you have 300 yes no pick lists, Brian.
Okay.
That's a lot of clicking, right? Even if you go into true edit mode.
Well, I guess technically with the radio
it gets
button, it's
halved.
half the click. Yes.
It gets halved. The amount of clicks get halved, and when you have 300 fields, that's 300 clicks instead of 600 clicks.
Well, then I would just use tab Y, tab N, tab Y, tab N, tab
but you
Y.
get what not everybody is that proficient with a tablet. I'm sorry, not everybody is that proficient with a keyboard, and some people are doing it on tablets or phones or things like that, and they can't do that.
It's true.
So
True.
Flow,
Okay,
Flow actually does have a point here. Now, that being said, this is something that's come up in conversations amongst some of us in the community. That is, we love Flow, don't we, Brian?
Yeah, we're Flownatics.
We came up with the term Flownatics. Yeah,
absolutely.
We really are behind it, and we really believe in it. But we, as members of the community who have trying to contribute and be helpful, we cannot just outright say that Flow is right for every occasion.
I mean,
it's not.
For 300 fields, I don't know about you, Mark. I'm a lazy guy. I'm more likely to say, well, let's use yours. Everything is a yes/no pick list. In that scenario, I could build a field set out, go query that field set in Apex controller, pass it to a Visual Force page, and I could still create a radio button for each field. And have
field
mapped.
Sets have their own issues too, like inability to put in spaces or sectioning. I don't get me started on what field sets don't have.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there's an option. I mean, you didn't even have to do that. You could literally just do Apex input field, and all 300 fields organized whatever way you want.
It's whatever works best for the situation at hand. And if she had 300 text fields, hell no, Flow. No, it makes no sense whatsoever.
You're better off with a regular edit page at that point.
Yeah, you really are. It doesn't get you anything unless you really are doing some crazy guiding. I mean, maybe only 100 of those fields are actually viable, depending on some, decision tree kind of logic. But if that doesn't exist, no.
All right. So to answer Susan's question directly, though, she asks, is there a way to do it without mapping all the fields to a contact field individually?
Right. And the answer is
no.
No, you have to map them all. There's no field sets. There's no anything like that in Flow where you can just blanket pull in. No.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Sorry, Susan. Anything else to add on that before we move on?
I don't think so. I think the main point is keep in mind all options. Explore things and don't be afraid to abandon things that don't work
or
don't
work
fit.
suboptimally. Or will not work from a maintenance standpoint.
Don't adhere to something blindly just because you like it or don't like it.
And and that's something we're both consultants right now.
Yeah.
Which basically means we're glorified admins for more than one company.
Yeah.
And it's kind of our job to say, here's a whole bunch of options. Here's the ones that we will recommend. And sometimes when you get down to the nitty-gritty, the preferred choice that you may have because you love Flow or you love whatever your aspect or tool that you have, turns out not to be really the best fit for the situation. You have to be willing to go with the flow, no pun intended.
One way or another, Flow is being gone with, yes.
Yes. All right. So our second question, Mark, is a little bit long. Okay.
Question number 2.
Yes.
Question
number 2. Comes from Kevin Caputo, and I apologize if I got that wrong, Kevin. But Kevin is a Flownatic. And he's been kind of dismayed by the lack of courses at the Salesforce University on Flow. And he brought this to Shauna Wolverton. For the those of you who don't know Shauna Wolverton, I forgot to look up her official title, but she's like one of the big VPs. She's a senior VP for the product management platform, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So basically, what Shauna says rocks the world.
She'd probably be mad if she heard me say that she was a bigwig. She'd probably be mad with me.
I was going to make a height joke, but that's not fair to her. Anyways.
Brian. You're a terrible person. I don't know if I should cut that out or not.
You should cut that out. I love Shauna too much.
I'm not cutting it out.
Oh,
Watch you squirm.
Wait,
then I'm complacent. Then I'm part.
You're complacent.
Not complacent.
Anyways, we're way off tangent. Anyways, he brought this up to Shauna at Dreamforce this year, and Shauna told Kevin that they are not investing in Flow as there are not enough people using it. Too small of a percentage of users that use it, and the tool is simply too difficult to use, and most admins are unable to figure out how to use this tool. Now, Shauna also told Kevin that Salesforce will be having to replace the user interface soon, as their current UI uses Adobe Flash, and that is no longer being supported by Adobe. So Kevin would like our feedback and opinion on first what we think of Flow and what its future is, and is Flow worth fighting for?
Okay, so the whole thing, let's start with the last bit, because the thing about the UI, that is not exactly news.
No.
Right? And previous conversations that I've had indicate that while the UI has to be redone, something to keep in mind is that when Flash gets shut off, right, it's not a blanket thing.
No.
It's not okay, everybody's off Flash now. That's not how it's going to work. Flash is going to be working and negotiating with various prominent companies and websites to determine which ones stay on, because some will stay on. And let's face it, Salesforce is pretty prominent in its space. Certainly one of the top websites in terms of traffic across the world. So that's a possibility. It's also what something else to keep in mind is that, again, they're not just blanket turning it off. They're basically adding a setting to Chrome and things like that are going to just be off by default. You can still turn it back on.
Yes.
So when the Adobe Flash cutoff happens, Flow will not automatically be dead. And because of that, the Flow team isn't exactly scrambling to replace it, because they don't exactly need to.
Right.
Now, that being said, there are a couple ways they can go about it. They can replace the entire UI with something fresh and new, or they can just rewrite the existing interface in HTML5, which frankly, based on what this is saying about lack of investment happening in Flow, seems more likely, because you would have to invest in
a lot.
UX designers. You know, there's a lot that goes into that, right? You can't just make a new interface. Not when you're at Salesforce's level.
We've been told a number of times at World Tours that they have this plan of creating this automation home where approval processes and everything kind of live in a Flow-like environment. You know, so for all we know, rewriting the UI means it's turning into that, and the Flow we currently know goes away into something more wholesome across the automation board. Now,
wait, what do you mean?
As in, instead of just having our wonderful Flow palette that we have now, you have...
You mean the designer?
Approval processes are in there. Everything becomes part of the designer. Yeah, your palette changes, essentially.
I don't see that happening. I mean, it's possible, but the thing about the automation home, every screenshot that's been shown at the World Tours and at the user groups, every screenshot has been that it is a collection for those places to live.
I think that's the redesign. That's the first step, because
but there's been no talk about that.
Yes, there has.
Has there been?
Yes, there has.
Beyond this
Chicago World Tour from Shelley Ursig. She mentioned it to the crowd. Yeah.
So here's the problem.
That's a huge safe harbor. I have not actually seen a discrete date.
That's a huge
when or if that's ever going to happen, but that's the talk.
Yeah, I remember when the executable Flow was being talked about years before we actually got the pilot for, what was it called?
Flow triggers.
Flow triggers, yeah. Well before we got the pilot for Flow triggers, 2 years before at least, they were talking about it at user groups. So safe
Big
the
safe
F harbor. Yeah. So, but here's the thing: is I'm also dismayed by this. I mean, for obvious reasons, but I now have concerns that because for years since Flow came out, Salesforce touted Flow as being, look, yeah, We know it's hard,
declarative apex,
but it moves the cliff.
Yes, the declarative cliff, basically where you can no longer do anything with clicks. You're forced to go to code.
And by virtue of that, it has an immense amount of value.
At the same time, Flow's not going to go away because Process Builder is built off of Flow, right? I mean, it's basically that's exactly what it's doing. Process Builder is building a Flow in the background.
No, sure, I know, but what this is insinuating is that the eventual move is to abandon the Flow designer. And I don't think Process Builder will ever be able. I don't think
that's going to happen. When I see,
but that's what he's worried.
When I see this comment, right? I think it's talking about, hey, they're not going to spend resources now on training courses. I mean, it was specifically about the lack of courses at the Salesforce University level, and on one hand, I get that because Shauna is right in the sense that Flow can be really difficult for a lot of what I would call the typical average admin on Main Street, right, to understand, because you do need to understand a little bit of terminology that is codish, like the word variable.
There's a way of thinking that you have to be able to think.
And there's a way of thinking.
Yeah.
How neither are unsurmountable obstacles for people. And you and I and Rakesh Gupta and a number of other people have done a really good job at providing a lot of resources for the community out there on how to get started with it. But because they're not coming from Salesforce, I can see that as like the admin that came out of sales operations or from marketing, they just don't know where to start with it.
No.
And a lot of times they don't need it.
I'm not saying that to sound elitist. It's just not a tool for them. It's something you have to have people who are dyed-in-the-wool admins for. You couldn't have it. Wouldn't be possible for a sales engineer to come off and start writing Apex.
Right, exactly right. Yeah. Now that said, as far as resources, other than community resource, isn't there a flow on Trailhead? Isn't there a intro flow level?
Yeah, there already are. Yeah, there's already Trailhead stuff for flow, and I don't think that there's. I can't see them stopping indefinitely. I can't see them just all of a sudden halting it. I would not be surprised if there were more coming. It may just be that as far as Shauna is concerned, as far as she knows, as far as she is pushing, she doesn't see a reason to push it from her end. But that doesn't mean, because think about it, Trailhead is a multi-headed beast.
Oh yeah,
the entire company surrounds it, pushes it, affects it, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's more stuff sometime in the future. We'll have to see.
So the question here is, should we be concerned about Flow and its future? And I don't see being concerned about it. I know there are some people out there who are snapping their fingers and being disappointed that Flow's not going away. I'm sorry, it's not. You're going to have to deal with it.
You don't have to use it.
You don't have to use it. You don't have to like it, but it's not going to go anywhere. And there are people out there who actually dislike people who use Flow.
I know, which is silly. I mean, that's like
it really
saying
is.
That's like disliking people because you prefer Apex code or you prefer Java over C#. I mean, it's a silly argument. Each tool has its own strength and benefits. It doesn't mean you can use the same tool for everything. I mean, I could go and use my flathead screwdriver as a hammer, but that would be a really bad choice.
Exactly. And by that same token, we shouldn't get rid of all flathead screwdrivers.
That's true.
Just because they're not Phillips head and they can't hammer nails. So deal with it.
That's very, very true. Besides, it makes it a lot easier to open paint cans with a flathead than a Phillips.
Or beer cans.
I don't drink beer, so I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't advise using a flathead.
No? To open your beer can? That's a Phillips? Phillips only?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're much less likely to cut yourself. Trust me.
I usually just use the pull tab.
The what?
You know, the little circle that sits on top of the aluminum can. You pull it up, and it acts as a lever, and pushes a little aluminum indent down and opens the can.
Really?
Mark, I'm supposed to play the stupid one in this duo.
I thought that was a target. I thought that was like to help you line up your jab.
Seriously?
Let's move on to the video.
Okay.
Now it's time for the Salesforce. Really? That's really what? Okay, sorry. Now it's time for the Salesforce video of the undetermined amount of time until the next one.
This video, this episode, is from Dreamforce 2016, Compassion as a Way of Life, the Zen Monks and Nuns of the Plum Village Monastery.
Okay, don't go anywhere, people. Don't fast forward. Here, this is from this year's Dreamforce, and yes, it sounds weird.
And we're about to play all 53 minutes of it.
No, we're not, because we get in trouble for doing that. But it really is something that is valuable to listen to. It's a group of Zen Buddhist monks talking about how they exist in the world and how they have dealt with all the things that have happened to them. And frankly, we as admins, we encounter all sorts of stuff that besets us on all sides every day. And this is, to me, listening to this was incredibly valuable. So I wanted to share it with everybody and hope that it makes your lives better in some small way. It's really inspiring to hear them talk about everything they've gone through and what they do on a regular basis.
And, with the climate that we've been having, it's holidays, people are stressed out. We could all use some Zen.
Yeah, we could all use a whole hell of a lot of Zen. I like the Zen tea.
Oh, is that a t-shirt?
No, tea. Like you drink. Zen.
Tea.
Yeah.
Does that take a long time to brew?
I am too tired to think of any good jokes for this. You can find the video in the show notes, or you can go to bit.ly/df16compassion.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, Boo by Brian Kwong, and our intern this episode was Question Mark.
Wait, Question Mark was our intern?
Apparently.
What did the Question Mark do for us?
Well, it helped us finish our sentences.
But that's true. Okay. Send us your interview suggestions, jokes, videos, tips, and feedback to wizardcast@thewizardnews.com, or head over to thewizardnews.com and click Contact WizardCast.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automagically. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'm a danger to myself and others.
Thanks for listening. I'm gonna have to call you and have you involuntarily committed for at least a 24-hour to 72-hour waiting period for observation work.
Is that how that works?
If you're a danger to yourself and others, absolutely. We can't have you causing harm to yourself or other people. You're too valuable. You are loved, Mark. You are loved. Thanks for listening. Mark just hung up on me.